if I'm talking to you, they want me to be a little closer to you. I mean, just for cinematic purposes.
Yeah,
sure.
No charge for alterations.
He's right there.
Oh yeah, right. Right.
I was still alive then.
Is that the machine? Wait a minute, let me see. Is this the machine?
Yeah,
that's the Model 3D on which REM sleep was discovered, right?
That's right, that's right.
The most important EEG machine in the history of mankind. Tell me, what made you decide to study sleep?
Well, I was interested in the state of consciousness and how it operates in a human being. And I thought that if we know something about a state of consciousness, not anesthesia, but normal unconsciousness, which is sleep, we may be able to derive an opinion as to what makes the conscious brain operate, or how it operates, and what the conditions are which govern its operation. And of course, one way to do that is to study phenomena of sleep and compare them with what happens in the waking state.
That in some way then explains the title of your book, doesn't it?
That's right. And I want to be sure that we want to know about the wakefulness as much as we know about sleep, or even more. During sleep, the brain waves differ entirely from the waking state. There are also other changes which were suggestive of unusual events in the reduced consciousness and sleep, and that is an increase in the heart rate, an increase in the respiratory rate, which was reported to me by a Zerinsky student, and I decided that must be due to some dreaming activity. We didn't know that, you see.
But you guessed, you hypothesized that was the case.
I surmised or guessed, or you want to call it. I said it should be tested. It came out only during the alpha frequency would people report dreaming, even people who said they never dreamt, which means they never recalled dreaming, of course.
Yeah. Now you're using here an indicator, as an indicator of dreaming, the alpha frequency during sleep. You're not using the presence of rapid eye movements as the indicator of dreaming. Does that mean that before you discovered that, you had the sense that the alpha frequency with the increased heart rate and increased respiratory rate was an indicator of dreaming?
Well, the so-called eye motility, we soon found out has very little to do with the subject. So it's a good index, a good indication without any instruments. You can tell when a person is dreaming.
Yes.
But as now, we can never connect a direct event of dreaming with the rapid eye movements.
Yes. So you, in your opinion, the direction of the eye movements during REM sleep does not scan the dream scene.
No relation whatsoever.
Yeah. Let me take you back just a little bit in this. Sometime in the early 1950s, Eugene Zerinsky was a graduate student of yours.
You're right.
And for some reason, you and he decided that he would study something about sleep in healthy newborn human infants. Yeah. Can you tell me about that? Why the two of you decided to study that, and what you were looking at and for?
Well, we're looking at exactly what I'm talking about for any evidence of different types of brain activity.
And why did you decide to use eye movements as an indicator?
We didn't decide to. They appear as a part of the picture, but we couldn't assign a particular function to them.
Right, but you did record them.
Yeah.
And why did you record them? What made you think to record them?
Because we observed them under the eyelids.
Oh, you looked at them. You looked at the infants.
That's right.
And saw the eyes move and decided, hey, let's record this.
That's right.
Did you observe a kind of periodicity to these periods of eye movement activity in the infant?
That's the whole picture. There's a periodicity. We call it like a brain wave of alpha, non-alpha, and repeated itself. At first, it's a very, very short period, and then it gets longer and longer during the night till it occupies quite a big portion of that cycle.
That discovery was somehow used to determine whether adults had eye movements during sleep. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not whether, but whether the eye movements which they had, and undoubtedly did have, that was known even before, had anything to do with dreaming. We couldn't ask an infant if he was dreaming, we'd ask an adult if he was dreaming.
How did you get the idea that the eye movements might have something to do with dreaming?
Well, I just mentioned that it is accompanied by rapid breathing and increased heart rate. Means that some sort of excitement occurs, which is, of course, what happens in a dream. There's some sort of excitement. That's when the brain operates on a low grade of consciousness. That's what a dream is, a low grade of consciousness.
Do you care to say who got the idea that the periods with rapid eye movements would be dream periods?
I thought it was my idea. I mean, when I talked to Ozerinsky about it, he may tell you it was his idea. I'm not concerned the least bit whose idea it was. The fact was that we tried it during the period that we're talking about, and the subjects reported dreaming, not always, but never reported dreaming during the slow wave fraction or part. It was just a matter of testing it. By testing it, we mean waking the subjects.
When you made that discovery, that you had a reliable physiological indicator of dreaming, the rapid eye movements, did you have any idea how fruitful that would be, how much research that would generate, and how much excitement and interest?
None whatever. We were too busy working on the subject to study consequences.
Just a few moments ago, you seemed to suggest that dreaming during REM sleep was simply a manifestation of a kind of periodic activation.
Flare-up or activation,
of the brain manifested by increased mental activity.
Cerebral cortex.
Does this mean that you think that dreams have no function for mental health or mental illness?
No, none whatever.
Please, just elaborate a bit.
Well, we just found that was a condition of brain activity at a very low grade, just like you get it when you're sort of drunk. A drunken person shows the same type of judgment or misjudgment as a dreamer does. So that was a fact. That was all there was to it, you see. There was no question there of using it for any particular purpose. But an indication of difference between the non-dreaming brain, the dreaming brain, and the wakefulness brain, you see. In the wakefulness brain, you analyze what you hear and see and feel on the basis of your previous experience. And depending whether you're a criminal or a just person, you make your conclusions from that. Whether you should do something, not do something. A lot of this may be inhibition of something. And the inhibition is not strong enough during the dreaming. So you do what we call antisocial acts, which you wouldn't think of or believe ever you're capable of when you're in waking state.
Yes.
Which is true.
Now, about 1960, there was a paper published by Bill Dement called The Effects of Dream Deprivation. And what it actually was, as you well know, was the effects of REM deprivation. But in any case, the claim was made in that paper that dream deprivation produced some psychological disruption during wakefulness, and that dream deprivation might play some role in producing serious mental illness. That dreaming was necessary for mental health. I conclude from what you've said that you were very skeptical about that report.
Right. That was his opinion.
Yes. Yes.
And what we're later, it's just a manifestation of the cycle which operates during the waking state, which we'll talk about later if you want to know, during dreaming. It's there by default, in other words. At the Mammoth Cave, for instance, we tried to periods of non-24 hours, like 18 hours or 28 hours. And I never adjusted to that. And the student who was with me quickly adjusted to the two other periodicities. The Mammoth Cave, you set up the beds above the ground so rats couldn't get to it.
The bed legs are in pails of water, right?
That's
so
right.
the rats wouldn't. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Richardson, one of my students, he adjusted very quickly to the new cycle, 28 hours or 18 hours, and I didn't. She was a subject lying in bed, and I was the observer. And then we grew beards because we didn't shave there.
Yeah. What happened to Richardson?
He's dead now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did he go on career in physiology?
No, he went to something else. He never really continued.
Yeah.
Let me take you back just a little bit.
Take me back all you want.
Did you have some idea that the brain activity varied during sleep with a periodicity of 60 to 90 minutes or so?
No, but by discovering this periodicity in sleep, we also found it operates during the waking hours.
Yeah, so...
And maybe if you're an artist or a poet, I don't know, maybe that's when you have like a stroke of genius, something occurring during that period. And it's an example of how we learn about the waking state from studying sleep.
Yes, an excellent example. So your view would be that this basic rest activity cycle is a characteristic of mammalian, at least mammalian life. Living.
Yeah.
And it is imposed upon both sleep and wakefulness.
That's right.
It is, in a sense, prior to either one.
Well, it operates periodically all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But more easily manifests itself when there's no disturbing influence. When it's dark, quiet,
Right.
your muscles are relaxed so they don't feed the brain activity as much as when they're tense. So all you see means reduced activity.
Yeah.
The same way as in a drunken person again. In the same way as in a senile person, you see.
Yeah. Do you consider that the discovery, the clarification, the focus on that basic rest activity cycle, do you consider that to be your most important scientific contribution?
I would say so, yeah.
It is a basic characteristic of life, as you put it.
Aside from the very first report of the existence of the cycle, which was discovered during sleep.
Yeah. Now, I think you're referring here, correct me if I'm wrong, to the report by Bill Dement and you called something like cyclic alternations in sleep. And it was 1957, 58, something like that. That, if I understand correctly, is the first study in which a continuous all-night EEG was done on human subjects. Is that correct?
I'm not sure of that, no. I think they always find something in somebody that can observe before.
Yeah. Well, what made you and Bill decide to do it?
Well, we wanted to know at that time whether this phenomenon is a regular phenomenon. We discovered that rapid eye movement condition.
Yeah.
Is it just occasional, or is it indefinite periodicity? How does it differ in different animals? Usually the cycle is much shorter in small animals. The biggest cycle we have is in the elephant, which is a very big animal.
Yeah.
And in the same animal, like human beings, it's much shorter in infancy and gets longer during the development and growth.
Yeah. So you did the continuous all-night EEG study to look at the temporal pattern of that cycle.
That's right.
And you found it.
Yeah, right.
And again, do you care to comment on whose idea it was to do that study?
I think it was my idea, yes.
Yes.
But somebody else may say no. I talked about it first. I'm not prepared to get a tenant. A exclusive power to it, or patent it. In other words.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
It's very little. But the main thing is utilization of that, and the conclusion of what it may mean to the physiology of the brain. It brings out a periodicity which operates, I mentioned a couple of times, all the time,
Yes.
but more easily discerned when there's no disturbing influences.
Yes, that is very clear. Yeah. Yeah. When you think about now this cycle, this of non-REM and REM sleep, as a manifestation of the more basic rest activity cycle.
That's right.
Do you think that non-REM sleep has a particular kind of function, and REM sleep has a different and particular specific kind of function?
Well, the non-REM sleep is just rest. The animal is tired, the human being is tired, and rests and relaxes. That's all.
And the function of REM sleep?
REM sleep is interruption of that, according to that cycle we're talking about. It interrupts the sleep of rest.
And it is just the imposition of activity occurring during sleep because there is this basic mechanism imposed?
Yeah, because it's there, and no physiological use. It doesn't serve any, except I mentioned utilize perhaps the degree of analysis goes on in the sleeping brain.
Yeah.
But for fundamental, basic purposes, it doesn't serve either self-preservation or preservation of the species.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's there by default, in other words.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Let me take you to an earlier time in sleep research. Did you go to the University of Chicago first as a junior faculty member or as a graduate student?
No, as a graduate student. But otherwise, Chicago to me at that time was like China. I knew it was somewhere in the West, and that's all I knew about it.
Yeah. You said something that made me think that perhaps you were new in this country.
Right.
You were not born in America?
No, I was not born.
I didn't know that. Where? Tell me about that place.
Well, my birth and education itself is a complicated thing because I was born in Kishinev, which is a part of capital of Bessarabia, Russian province. It's between Russia and Romania. Part of the time belonged to Romania, part of the time to Russia. And I went to school there to what is known as Realschule, which means the school where they went more for science and mathematics compared to the gymnasium, which is no more Latin or Greek.
Yes.
And after I graduated, I knew there was not much of a chance for Jewish students to universities in Russia because they had a normal system, so I felt I had to go somewhere. And at that time I was sort of inclined, Zionist-like inclined, and I knew that, or heard, or were told about that Beirut, Syria at that time was a part of Syria. There was no Lebanon at the time. And I spent the first year in Beirut in the medical school of the university. But shortly thereafter, after school year started, Turkey joined the Central Powers, Germany and Austria, and I became an enemy alien.
Yeah.
And that made it pretty hard. But as long as we were in the college grounds, you see, we lived in dormitories there in the college. We had sort of protection of the college government. So we were allowed to stay there instead of being sent off to some distant part, like many Armenians were sent home and later slaughtered there. But at the end of the school year, we had to decide what we were going to do. And so again, through the interference of the American ambassador to Constantinople, we were picked up by an American cruiser which happened to stop in Beirut at that time. The cruiser was named Des Moines, and I couldn't understand how an American cruiser has a French name meaning monks. But of course, we later learned there was a city in America called Des Moines. Mm-hmm. So we decided to take a boat and go to New York. We had to sign papers promising never to come back. And that was just like refugees. We had I and others had no particular intention of settling in the United States. We just wanted to have a place to go while the war was going on.
And there were no restrictions on your coming to America?
You had a restriction. You had $25 to be able to enter the United States.
Oh, yes. Well,
and that, of course, we fulfilled.
Yeah.
Then arriving in Ellis Island, that time was Ellis Island, the
Yes.
port of entry. We just were dumped off from the city, and there was some institution that I think it still exists, the HIAS, HIAS, which was helping arriving immigrants. And they picked us up, and somebody told me, if you want to see people from Kishinev, take a walk on 2nd Avenue in the evening, which I did and found several people that I knew.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Youngsters too, that apparently got there earlier.
Yeah.
And that's what made me remain in the United States.
Yeah.
I was a victim of war, or refugee of war, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so there you are in New York City. If
That's
I
right.
understand, it's about 1915,
Well, 1915, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I worked there for a while and got a nighttime job in a pastry shop. I was able to go to college in the daytime.
City College.
City College, and in 1919, I got a bachelor's degree from City College.
Yeah. So you graduated from City College.
So and then I thought I would study some more physiology, was interested, and I went to Columbia University as a graduate student.
Yeah.
And spent 1 year in the Department of Physiology, then doing work that my teacher was interested in, you know.
What was that?
Well, various things, the effect of this and that. I have a record here of my papers, but nothing distantly related to sleep.
Then you went to the University of Chicago.
Yeah.
And was the subject of your doctoral work sleep?
Right, exactly. The effect of sleep deprivation. There was a whole series on the phenomena during sleep, and this was paper number 1. I think there were about 8 or 10 of them in that order.
Yeah. And it was the effect of sleep deprivation?
Yeah.
In animals or humans?
In human beings, yeah.
Yeah. On what?
On their behavior.
On their behavior.
Sure. How they acted, how they reacted, how their sleepiness varied from day to night or night to day.
Yeah.
And the various phenomena pertaining to blood pressure, temperature, and whatnot.
Okay. Now, when you got your PhD,
Yeah.
they must have offered you a position in the department.
They did.
And so you went directly from a graduate student to instructor, assistant professor, or
First
something like
instructor, and assistant professor, then was an associate professor.
Yeah, yeah.
Grades, yeah.
that. So once you arrived in Chicago, you never left.
That's right. I had several opportunities, but they were not provincial universities, but I wasn't particularly interested in them.
Yeah,
But nothing from Harvard or Yale.
yeah,
But I was satisfied with the arrangement there because I could do whatever I wanted. Nobody told me what to do. And later I also had administrative duties. I was secretary of the department for some time, but essentially I was on my own during that period till I left in 1960 or 59.
yeah.
In those days you had to leave the university at the age of 65. You couldn't go on.
It was a mandatory retirement.
That's right. Except for certain Nobel Prize winners, they were given a special dispensation.
Like I remember Charles Huggins got.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's correct. So I stayed there till I retired, and then I went to California. My older daughter was at the time in California, so we went there and then started to work on the second Sleep and Wakefulness, which started in 59 and ended in 62 or something like that, because it was published in 63 after the manuscript was submitted.
Tell me, I mean, that's a comprehensive, encyclopedic, scholarly work on sleep.
Yeah.
You must have reviewed all the literature on sleep in 1939.
That's right.
How many references were in that edition of the book?
About 1,300 in the first edition,
Yes.
and about 4,500 in the second.
So that task, the assembling and organizing, reporting the literature on 4,500 papers, in those days, you didn't have computer bibliography.
That's right.
Yeah, it must have been an enormous. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Well, I had different categories, you see, and the cards, which are arranged in boxes, one behind the other, had marks on them, colored marks, things projected on the top, green, yellow, and so on, indicating certain parts of the topics, and the position of the card with a mark, which is this part and that part, indicated the type of animal we're using, and that sort of thing. So to get what I wanted to get, I had to run through to see how the green things go and how the red things go and pick them out.
Yeah.
But that was, of course, a big job in itself.
But still nowadays, and as much in your day, you had to read those papers as well as assemble them.
Right.
And we're talking about reading 4,500 papers.
That's right. That's correct.
It's an enormous job.
It was an enormous job. That reminds me, you wanted me to say about my family.
Yes.
My family was very devoted to me, whether I deserved it or not. And they helped me fully preparing cards, and labeling them and typing them. And I mentioned that in my introduction to Sleep and Wakefulness, that I greatly appreciate their help to me. As I said, the question is, what's the family for? Usually it's for trouble, but sometimes it's also for good deeds, you see.
Yeah. Do you think, to take you off on a tangent,
Yeah.
do you think that some of the ethic that was responsible for that family help for the man, the professional person in the family, that some of that has changed over the years now?
Well, it may have changed because there seemed to be a general, at least I know of some families where the parents are very intellectual and very able, and the children are no good, you see. So either it's hard luck, or actually, the old saying is, you can't drive a car without getting a driver's license. That's right.
Yeah.
But you can bring up children without any bringing up license, and that many people are just either on the basis of their own experience, sometimes been mistreated by their parents, and sort of developed a negative attitude. And some as a result of ignorance, they don't know how to handle children. And in that connection, I myself feel that I wasn't a good parent in many ways, you see, because I didn't know how to bring up children. You just assume that if you're old enough to get married and have children, you should know how to
But that's the story of the human race.
That's right.
There never have been classes in parenthood.
No, that's right. But there should be.
Yeah.
There should be of course, I wouldn't say compulsory removal of the fetus, but any person that has a child or is pregnant, both the husband and wife, both of them, he's just as important as she is, should be required to take a course. And how you can compel them to it, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me of a related subject. I mean, you're talking now about the education of parents as models and teachers of their children.
Yeah.
And you feel some deficiency, which all conscientious parents do, I'm sure. But you functioned as a teacher in another way, too.
Yeah.
Did you think that you were a good teacher of students?
Well,
or do you want to comment about that?
No, I'm not really much sure I was a good teacher, no. I did my best, that's all I can say.
Was that an important part of your career to you? Or was your research more important?
My research was more important. I shouldn't say that, but it was more important to me. Actually, teaching should come first.
One of your students, Dement, achieved, an unparalleled preeminence in this field.
Well, I was lucky that way, you see. And if I get one such student, I think I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
Because I told you earlier that he was attracted by, I think he wrote it somewhere in one of his books, he was attracted by listening to the few lectures in physiology of sleep, which was a part of a compulsory 3-quarter course on sleep, on physiology, you see.
Yeah.
And he might not have been affected. So the fact that he was affected, I think, I'm very pleased.
Yeah. What do you remember of Bill Dement as a young student?
Well, I remember he was a very smart fellow, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, very.
Hardworking?
Hardworking, yeah.
One of the characteristics of Dement that at least I see in him, is that he is very imaginative and creative and so on. Did you see that in him?
Not particularly, no. I saw he was very devoted and very interested, and that was all we needed.
Yeah.
And he's a smart boy, no question about it. He wouldn't be where he is now if he weren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the point is that, as you said, he's considered so prominent now that via him, I became something, you see, because I was his teacher, you see.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what are you happy with and what are you unhappy with about current sleep research and the way it's going?
Yeah, I couldn't say that I have a very definite attitude. I'm just pleased that the information is being widened. Mm-hmm. When I said the very fact that everybody thinks about the REM, non-REM as a characteristic of sleep, I'm trying to, so to speak, debunk. I have a very hard time. It's a characteristic of living.
But you're returning now to your original point, aren't you? The point that what we do during sleep, how well sleep works, determines how we function when we're awake.
Right, right.
And that is the significance of sleep.
Right.
And in fact, that is how you originally became interested in sleep, because you're interested in wakefulness and alertness.
That's what I say.
And this was a primary effector of that.
I think I sort of introduced the word wakefulness. Actually, I had a lot of trouble with that.
Really?
Because it's a long word. People don't like long words, you see.
Yeah.
And even now you see papers saying sleep-wake rhythm.
Yeah.
And wake, has two different meanings. One is partly related to sleep. It's when you visit the family of a recently deceased person, and you're supposed to be awake. Actually, you may be falling asleep that night too. But the other wake means a trace on the surface of water when the ship passes by.
Yes.
That disturbance.
Right.
That's a wake.
Yes.
But both of these words don't apply to what we call wakefulness.
Right.
And the only The only, you might say, alibi for that is the Russian word for wakefulness is even longer than wakefulness. It has five consonants in a row. Can you imagine 5 consonants?
Can you
in a
say
row?
it?
Huh?
Can you say it?
I can say it, but it is Bodrstovanie. Bodrstovanie.
Yeah.
B-O-D, then R-S-T-V. Five consonants in a row.
Uh-huh.
On the other hand, to give him some credit, the Russian word for sleep is son, S-O-N, like sun in English, sun.
Yes.
So they have 3 letters for sleep, whereas English has got 5 letters for sleep.
Right.
So it's a give and take proposition.
I got you.
But I sometimes used to be irritated. Finally, I gave it up. No use in trying to put the world to the right use of words.
I want to sort of ask you about your opinion about the big picture in sleep research. What do you think have been the most important discoveries in sleep research?
Well, it's very, very hard to say. I think, as of now, the most important series of discoveries is assigning certain place in the brain to certain functions. Even take, for instance, the thing we're talking about, the activity period of basic rest activity cycle.
Right.
Everything is active there, but the muscles are relaxed, you see.
Uh-huh.
You don't get up and walk around as you would if you... So they must have a mechanism which counters the usual activity phase, you see.
That's Mike Chase's work.
Right. So you see, we're beginning to fill in things that we didn't know before.
Yeah.
And that's what science is for, is filling in things that don't click together.
Would you include in this the work that has gone on locating the area that generates REM sleep to the pons? I mean,
certainly.
That was pioneered by Jouvet and so on.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. If pressed, what advice would you give to young students who are beginning a career?
I certainly would refrain from doing that.
A wise man.
Yeah.
When you reflect on your career, what were your major disappointments and your major gratifications?
Once again, it's very hard to answer. My major disappointment is I didn't have all the power in my possession. I was never among the elite faculty at any time when I was at the university. And my accomplishments is what I accomplished. Whether I could have accomplished more or had more facilities, I don't know. People think they had more facilities, have accomplished more, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Point is, I'm at peace with myself.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, and that's about all I can do.
Yeah. Now you now achieved really a prominent recognition from the people in this field.
But it's too late to be of use to me. I don't see I dislike it or I'm unhappy about it, but if I had it 40 years ago, it would be much, much better.
Yeah.
So some say better late than never, and some say, well, if it's too late, it's as bad as never. So there you are.
Is there a certain crust of indifference about this now that surrounds you?
About what?
Is there a certain indifference about this now, the recognition?
Yeah, now it's meaningless to me. But I was given a chance to do what I wanted to do. My hope was fulfilled because I was able to find out about sleep.
Maybe this is an appropriate way to close the interview. In 1966, a Distinguished Service Award of the Thomas W. Salmon Committee on Psychiatry and Mental Hygiene, the New York Academy of Medicine.
It was a medal. I gave me a medal, not a gold medal, a brass medal.
Yes. And at that time, it was said, quote, This area of research owes more to Nathaniel Kleitman than to any other man.
Well, that's not true, but I don't mind it. I'm not mad at him.
Well, there might be some debate about whether or not it's true.
That's
And
right.
why don't we close there? Thank you again. Very,
Thank
very
you
much.
for doing it. I'm very pleased that somebody will have a record of things that went on. And now you think you can make your plane?
I don't know, can I?
You have to learn to speak in public, you see.
Uh-huh.
So when I went to register for that course, I had to take that course. The professor tells me, you can't take the course. I said, why not? I says, because you can't speak English. So I said to him, what am I speaking to you now? He said, you're speaking to me something which I can understand, but it's not English. When I arrived in New York, I met some of these fellows that I told you about on Second Avenue, that were there for some time.
Yes.
One of them says, you know, I bought a shirt today and it cost me $12. And I said, a shirt? What's a shirt? He said, shirt? What's I'm wearing, don't you know? I said, you mean a shirt? He said, look at this greenhorn. He's been here for 5 days and wants to teach me English. I just recently met a relative by marriage. And the man tells me, you know, I was one of your students in physiology, and he gave me a very low grade. I said, at that time I didn't know you were a relative. I would have given you all the grades you wanted.